Hello? Hello? You hear me?
Oh, I'm muted. That's awesome. I just did a big thing. We're sponsored by Black Swan Tactical, where you can get cool little hats like this right here, the Crumpy Militia hat, patches, shirts, everything else. I just want to remind everyone that at 2,000 subscribers, we will be giving away this. This is a Mantis X10 Elite. Mantis is the Tesla of shooting, and this will help you suck less. At 1,500 subscribers, we will be giving away a $100 gift certificate to Uncle Sam's Misguided Children, which should be pretty cool. Today, I am joined by an esteemed member of the YouTube community and the gun community, and we're going to be talking a little bit of what happened at GRPC. Welcome to the show, Mr. GWebs.
Hey, thanks for the invite. Happy to be here. Sorry for the misunderstanding with the time zones. I'm still new to that, I guess.
It's totally okay. How are you doing?
Here to Midland. How about you? It's been a while since we chatted, I guess.
Yeah. Chatted online. We've chatted other places on your show, Daily Gun Show. But yeah, so did you watch the GRPC?
Yeah, this was my 5th one. So I was really eager to see how it worked visually or virtually. So I was there for the Friday night get together, which was like a virtual implementation of the cocktail party that happens on Friday night at the GRPC, the Gun Rights Policy Conference. Normally it's held in a different state each year, a different city each year. It usually alternates between gun friendly and unfriendly. So everyone travels pretty much at some point or another to get to GRPC. So on Fridays, when people kind of assemble in the town, there's a cocktail party. And then on Saturday night, after the first night of the conference, there's another cocktail party. And as much as GRPC is a place for us all to get situation reports from each other and to offer them to the community, the other layer of Gun Rights Policy Conference that I've experienced is the collaborations and the networking and the ideas that get spread in those cocktail parties. So I wanted to experience all of that in the virtual format. And the only thing I missed, I think, was there was a virtual get together on Sunday morning before the event. And I was doing stuff on Sunday morning in real life. So I missed that. But otherwise, I attended all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did it go with the cocktail party? Was there a lot of people there or not as many?
Yeah, it was on Zoom, which I had used Zoom before, but only with Second Amendment Foundation. They're the first ones that I've used that with. We use StreamYard like you're using out of Canada or other services. So Zoom was all right. And the first night I was like 101 people there. And then the second night it was like 50 something people there. So, I mean, if you've experienced a Zoom meeting, it's very much like this. Only thing it's missing is the exponent that streams it to the YouTube. So you have basically a giant private room like this, which was very much like a conference or a get together. The only thing you couldn't do is kind of separate into smaller groups, virtually, but you could easily send out links and have another room open and just invite people to that room. So anyway, I think it did. I mean, who knows, but as far as things go, I think they did a really good job of emulating both the event and the cocktail parties virtually.
Yeah, I got a new setup. I replaced my cameras. I got rid of all the web cameras and got Canons. So I'm trying to adjust the lighting and everything else. It's gonna be. I don't know how I look.
Looks pretty decent on this end.
Yeah, just getting the lighting right. Of course, webcams use a different amount of light and stuff. So I've been going back and forth with this. All right, so that's a lot more people than I would expected to show up for a cocktail party.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people understand the value of the actual get together, the evenings get together, or the get together in the evenings. And I think, well, this year, a lot of people are being forced or, newly introduced to Zoom. So it wasn't new for some people. Of that 100 and something the first night, I'm going to say 10 people talked, maybe 12 people. So it was a smaller group of people actually talking, and most people were observing. But again, the amount of information that got across was vast. For a while there, we had some good discussion on 2A topics. And I'm guessing that some of those people had never been in that type of situation before. So they got experience with something that they may have never experienced before. But that's very much like the regular cocktail party, where maybe there's a conversation that people are having, and then, you'll have your people in that conversation that are listening, but then there's almost always a group of people that are, just arm's length away that had been overhearing it and are still gathering something from that conversation. And you have that element in this type of format.
I know a couple people that I talked to, they started to watch it, but they just couldn't get into it because of virtual setting. Did you have that problem?
Maybe because it's no, I guess no, but I could understand why someone could, because if it's new and this is, something that you're still trying to struggle with the subject matter, and then the format isn't conducive if you're not comfortable. But I think the opposite applies, where some of us that are real fluent with this wasn't even a thing. Like the virtual part of it was taken in stride. So I don't know if they're going to get feedback, because it's really about their audience. I mean, my audience is probably fluent with, going online, where some other audience might be completely foreign to it. If their audience was somewhere, their audience was somewhere in between. So who knows? They'll have to tell us if their audience gave them feedback that it was, I guess, what do you call that? Like easy to deal with or not. But I'm pretty sure no one really complained. Nobody was, every year you've got somebody that'll say, hey, what's going on? Where am I? How do I do this? There was very few questions like that. In fact, I don't know if there was any questions like, what button do I click, or how do I unmute? Just some of the simple stuff.
I think there were a lot of people out there who actually got exposed to it for the first time. This is the first DRPC I've actually been to. When I say been, figuratively, I wasn't actually there, but what I'm talking about.
Right.
So it was a lot of good information. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the average like gun YouTube watcher would get it, but for like people like you, people like me, like people who actually work in 2A advocacy, I can definitely see how it would be helpful. Dollar bills, y'all. Dollar bills, y'all. Thank you, Rich. Rich just gave money.
$5 on Super Chat over on YouTube, so that's helping out the niece.
Yeah, I can do that. I can do the Wolverines. I got my whole soundboard up. Running.
Yeah. As far as the presentation being like, for the masses or dumbed down, that's definitely always a concern, I think. It's not really designed to be, the event is in its 35th year, so it's had some time to, adjust and become what it is. And I don't think the event was ever designed to be like a spit and polished presentation for a layman's terms, or whatever you call it, like an amateur. I think it's always been a real, whatever the version of hardcore is for nerds. Like it's always been like really, really into the nuts and bolts of 2A. And I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily an aspect that needs to be developed, but it could be developed, if that makes sense. I don't really know the ramifications. I have to look at it in the bigger picture as far as strategy to see if it's worth tweaking. In other words, if you tweak the thing to be just a presentation that was appealing to kids, it would be useless as a instructional and as the conference that it is getting information across that's dry and not necessarily fun. If you sugarcoated all that, it would be a different thing. And I don't think that's what people need or appreciate. The strategic aspect that it provides has nothing to do with outreach or education. It's all about infrastructure support and coordination, networking, and stuff. So, being public, or the fact that it can be public, I don't know. There's definitely some effort in this area. That I think every area, it's just that line between behind the curtain and in front of the curtain. And it's not that it's hidden behind the curtain. It's just that you don't really want to look at all those nuts and bolts necessarily to get the point across. You just want to watch the movie. Not everybody needs to see every camera adjustment or knob or whatever. Like, some of that stuff is just easier to not deal with. And this is, I think, just right on that line where you kind of need to have the curtain open, but every time you open the curtain, you don't get the experience you expect. So it's just, I think it's going to be a one or the other thing.
You don't want to see how the sausage is made.
Yeah, exactly. And if you start talking about how you cook it, then you're no longer a customer anymore. Now you're a cook, and it's just a different conversation with the customers and with the cooks, right?
Yeah, isn't that what we want to do, though? Make everyone out there a cook?
I don't think we want to make anybody a cook. I think letting people have like a glass wall to the kitchen, or like Subway, where they can be part of the creation of something, but to suggest that everybody needs to care enough or be obligated, that's fascism. So no, I don't think everybody has to. But if you're, if you insist on being ignorant, it should be something you have to work at, right? There's nothing wrong with putting the information in front of everybody, and it's yours to ignore, but I'm going to stop before everybody has to do anything.
Yeah.
I hear you.
I understand that. I think it's good. Do you think they should do it in person, but also have like a live feed that runs on YouTube?
I don't know. I used to be a really big advocate for the live feed, and now I'm debating my own position, or that position anymore. Because of that same thing. If you water it down to where it's appealing to YouTube, you've maybe made it ineffective, or you probably have made it ineffective. And I don't know, with a different set of, if it was all YouTubers that started fighting for 2A, and they were just capable of doing highly produced YouTube videos, with one hand tied behind their back while they're really paying attention to the subject matter, then it would be a different story. But we're talking about people that have been involved since 1968, when our first national level infringement started happening to us, the modern infringement started happening. So expecting somebody who started working in 1971, when he's 24 years old, and we're seeing more obituaries than we are welcoming new people into the realm. It's not the right position to take, to expect them to also make everything nice for us on YouTube. That's just a skill set that, it's not fair to push on them. I mean, they've made things useful in publications. They've made things available in periodicals. They've made things available in mail. They've made things available in online formats up until now. To expect them to be fluent in streaming, the next evolution, or the step in evolution, it might be a little bit too much to expect from somebody who's really supposed to be keeping the kitchen working, not necessarily worrying about what parsley's on our plate.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see your point on that, but I do think that they need to do some type of live stream or something for the advocates that can't be there.
Oh no, I hear you. And if it's something like an invite thing where you got to at least understand that you're seeing something that's data and not an evening entertainment show, then that's all I would add as a disclaimer, just so that you don't invite a bunch of people in expecting to see, the next big YouTube sensational thing, and then find out that it's just a bunch of nerds talking about our rights, the bait and switch type of thing. As long as people know that they're going to talk nerdy with like Clover does on Thursday, then I'm down for the idea. But I think what happens is, as soon as you present it on YouTube, people everyone assumes that it's supposed to be some sort of a presentation, and then it starts to be critiqued as all the things it missed on the presentation part.
Yeah, I can definitely see your point on that.
With Zoom and stuff, though, you don't need to just have it be live. Like, you could have like a whole thing where if you're not able to be here, but you wanted to be here, sit in this Zoom auditorium where you're literally part of it, because that what you offer there, and you could be in the room and still be in the Zoom thing because you got the text comments and stuff. So imagine having a panel discussing a subject or whatever, and then at the end of that 15-minute panel of 3 or 4 people, you've got a 5-minute question and answer. And instead of waiting for somebody to show up in real life and stand in front of a microphone and not know how to work a microphone and either yell or whisper into it, and so we all have that kind of stuff to deal with. Instead of wasting any of that time, the panel or a moderator could say, oh, in the Zoom conversation of all the remote viewers that weren't able to be here, we had this question. They could pop it up on the screen, like we can in these services. And then that could be real useful for the event, for any event like this, I guess.
Well, that's kind of what I was alluding to. Something like that,
And then in when you have something like that and people are used or accustomed to multitasking, whatever it's called, what you'll get is a conversation happening in that text chat parallel to the live conversation. And yeah, I mean, if there was one, let's just say video feed for observers and then a second video feed that's more like the people at NATO who are all listening to the same translator or whatever, so everybody's on the same thing, having something like that for just the dedicated 2A activists to listen and have their own portal, I guess, their own door to the room. That could be super powerful, actually, because when you get a bunch of people that are thinking the same thing, that are on the same track in a chat room together, and you remove all the people that are just observers, that are just watching because they got nothing else to do that weekend, and get rid of all those questions and just extra stuff, that could be a pretty effective feedback mechanism, right? I don't think we've seen anything like that before.
Yeah, it definitely could be. I mean, I would love to see something like that. I think that's the future. I'm glad that they were able to pull it off, even if it's not in person this year. I was kind of worried that they were going to miss it this year. So I'm glad that they actually did get it off, which is good.
Yeah, and I'm going to give credit to the Clover and Plight Society and I guess others who have streamed over the years, because even though they haven't made it like a platform of their presentation that it's online, they have last year, so they kind of got used to that already. They've got their foot wet, so they stuck their foot in the water, or their toe in the water at least, a couple of years back at this point. So it wasn't like, oh no, we've never done anything virtual before, and now we have to do it only virtual. They at least had been open-minded enough to let people who wanted to stream start to stream. So this wasn't 100% new to them. Unfortunately, I'm going to give them the same critique as I give them pat on the back. It would have been great if they would have been fluent in live. I don't know, any of the last 7 years that live has been a feature. It would have been nice if they were fluent in live 3 years ago. Then this year would have been a totally different situation. They'd have been 3 years the wiser, the experience of old timer and being able to take in stride some of the little stuff. And instead of just experiencing it for the first time as a group, they would have had some experience and some coaching for the presenters and the presentation. So, again, they did a great job, but we can always do better, right?
Yeah, we can definitely always do better. But I guess better late than never, right?
Yeah,
At least
sure.
that's what I think. I think with a lot of the COVID thing going on, what even when we do get a vaccine and everything else, I do believe that people are going to remember basically what happened with COVID and decide that they're going to prepare just in case they have to do this in the future.
Yeah, I agree. There's like that silver lining that this experience that everyone's got won't be just forgotten, I guess. They at least understand now what this whole live streaming is, where before it was probably just a concept to a lot of people.
Yeah, they've basically pushed. They were pushed into the modern era, I would say.
Yeah,
So,
and that's good. I mean, that's how things happen, right? When stress creates change and whatnot. So, sometimes some people have to be pushed at some point, and some people aren't curious and interested. They're only going to do things begrudgingly if they have to. And we're calling it a silver lining. Obviously, we wouldn't have wanted it this way, but if we got to do it this way, at least we can pull some benefit out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I just think a lot of people said, "Oh, gRPC is online," and they had a misconception of what gRPC was. They thought it was going to be like a two-way rally where people give speeches and hype people up, and that's not what gRPC is. So I think a lot of people went into it thinking that's what it was.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit too. They're just not used to it. So when they present it to people, or they didn't really, I don't know if you heard a lot of promotion for it. I kind of think they dropped the ball on promotion, unless they're not trying to promote it real heavily. But yeah, I have no idea from the promotion what people might have thought it was. But the only thing you can assume is that they're going to compare it to things that are like it, and that would be more like a Virginia rally, where people literally got up with the idea of talking to a crowd. Either to get them motivated or inspire them or give them a specific set of something, right? Something to talk about, where this was just kind of sit reps of sometimes excruciating details of stuff that was, unless you're really paying attention, kind of tough to follow. So yeah, more like a college lecture than a stump speech or a politician get call it rally or something.
Yeah. It was definitely a conference. I mean, it's right there in the name. But I don't know. Just some people I spoke to, they brought up that like, well, it was kind of dry. It was like, it's supposed to be dry. It's a conference. It's not a rally.
It is, and I agree. And I've had the same. I've had some feedback from the positive side, but I've also had critiques from people that watched it or have been experienced it or seen it more than once, and not just the seeing it this year, but seeing its evolution or lack of evolution over the years is something that some of the critiques that I hear. And we have one of those situations where there's perfection, there's nothing, and then there's this event that's happened for 35 years. Like, we got to give it all the credit and respect that it deserves. But at the same time, yeah, it's not, there is room for other things, I suppose. Like, if you need something that isn't this, we're allowed to do that. Like, if there's room for it, maybe it's time for it. I don't know. But this has been something that online has only been an issue for 5 years, really. There wasn't a way to stream it before that. I might have been able to stream audio before that, but the internet just wasn't capable of streaming video, more than 7 years ago, technically. But realistically, even 5 years ago, it would have been a difficult situation, assuming that the hotel had decent internet and that kind of thing. But now it's kind of a no-brainer. You can assume you can stream pretty much anywhere. So it'd be nice to see everybody keeping up with the tech, or at least that's not like cutting edge. That's just current tech, streaming.
Yeah, I will be streaming the 2A rally that I'm attending this weekend to my channel.
Okay, so I know there's a Pennsylvania one coming up, but what one's coming up this weekend?
It's called God, Guns, and Good. It is a 2A rally. There is a really strong Second Amendment candidate running in the state of Virginia. His name is Bob Good. He is very strong on the Second Amendment. He is one of the Campbell County was the first 2A sanctuary in Virginia, and he was like the guy that was like the driving force behind that. So now he's running for Congress against a guy named Webb, and Webb is basically funded. Most of his money comes from Moms Demand Action, Everytown, Bloomberg, and Giffords. So not really hard to see where that's going to go, where he stands on gun rights.
Is it a matter of waking up Virginia, or is it a matter of changing Virginia's mind, do you think?
I think it's a matter of waking up Virginia. when the anti-gun Democrats, I say not saying all Democrats are anti-gun, but in Virginia, all the ones who ran and won were Democrats. They were all funded by Michael Bloomberg and stuff like that, and they had a really strong get out the vote campaign, and the Republicans in Virginia didn't. So a lot more anti-gun people went to vote than people that were pro-gun. The anti-gun people were rallied for being anti-gun. This whole election cycle last time we ran on the anti-gun platform. And the gun owners in Virginia at the time just sat back and they're like, we're Virginia. We're not going to go anti-gun. What are you, crazy? That's not going to happen. I was told that. And I told a lot of people, I was like, yeah, you don't understand what's coming down. They're like, yeah, it will be fine. So they stayed home.
Well, and they didn't stay home like, I'm not going to vote, but they just stayed home because they normally don't participate. So they just figured they could slide the way they normally slide, not paying attention, only voting when they feel like it. And yeah, obviously you got slapped with a bunch of money and intent. You haven't had another election since, so I guess you can't know. But assuming that Virginia, like anywhere, I would assume, is going to be offended by such a situation that was created for you last time around, I'm assuming you're going to pull a Colorado or a 1995 on them and give them consequences for all their actions. My question is, I don't know if I've heard anybody ask this or answer this one before. The same way that Nevada, when they did their ballot initiative and got universal background checks, and then luckily their somebody in their state, the attorney general or somebody said, no, we're not going to do this. You can't make us. This is a dumb initiative that wasn't thought through, and it doesn't make sense, and I can't afford to do it, so we're not doing this. Whatever the reasons were, because they had literally just taken a carbon copy of the Washington State initiative and played it in Nevada, it backfired on them. But if it wouldn't have backfired on them, we'd have universal background checks in Nevada based on ballot initiatives, based on Bloomberg paying marketers to fool people into signing a ballot, in shopping center parking lots and at rallies and stuff, and then turning in those ballots and suggesting to the populace that people were so concerned that they want to get rid of guns, and here's the ballot initiative that you can now vote on. And that worked, paying for marketing and lying was able to get people in Nevada, you would think a gun-friendly state, to screw up and vote for gun control. Like I say, luckily there was a loophole that the attorney general used to not enforce it. But what I'm saying is, out here at least, I think that happening in Nevada woke up Utah, Arizona, Colorado a little bit, maybe New Mexico, right? And maybe these states around here that thought, like, we're impenetrable, we're the West, like you can't put anti-gun stuff, and then bam, anti-gun stuff snaps right into Nevada, right? Is that going to happen in Virginia? Is that going to make the eastern states go, oh snap, they're not screwing around, and it only takes one election for us to go bad? Do you think that'll wake up the other states?
On the East Coast, in the South they will. In the North, they've already fallen. Like everywhere north of Virginia is already fallen, besides New Hampshire, which is staunchly libertarian. But to the south, I can definitely see them waking up. I know they're making a play to try to do the same stuff in Georgia. So we will see. I will say that Biden, he does have a 14-point lead over Trump, but ever since that was a lot higher before the Democrats took over and passed all those anti-gun bills. So I'm not saying Trump ties into gun rights, but the people who are likely to vote for Trump are likely to vote for pro-gun candidates. If that makes any sense.
No, I hear you. And I think this year is definitely going to bring more people to the ballot box than a typical year that people just ignore or assume or whatever. And if, like you say, they're going to come vote for Trump or for the president, then they're going to be voting for everything else that's on the ballot.
Yeah, and I think if you look, Biden had like a huge lead over Trump. It was like he wasn't even considered like a light blue state. It was considered a dark blue state, and since the Democrats took over, now it's considered a light blue state. So that's a little bit. That shows a little bit of how the it's shifting a little bit. But that was even before all the riots and everything, because that's kind of pushed it a little bit more to towards Trump, even though it's still polling for Biden. We'll see, though. We will definitely see. I can't wait until the election cycle's over, though. Just so we know.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the years where the focus on it is driving everybody nuts, I think. Except for, I guess, the people getting rich off of this.
Yeah. Especially with the whole Supreme Court stuff now.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I try not to pay attention to politics like in real time. I don't stream politics or anything. I'll watch that stuff after the fact. Listen to people like yourself who, can give like a sober, rational recap of what has gone on, unless it's something that's imminent that you have to pay attention to. I let the people that are worried about it worry about it, and then I observe once it's already, finished, instead of watching it bake and complaining about how it's rising or not rising or whatever. So I really don't pay too much attention, but yeah, I don't know. It seems like it's one of those things that's almost a perfect storm, like the way that it went down with the end of Obama. The stuff that's being demanded is perfectly ironic to, they literally $180 position. So the people that were against the concept before are for it now, and vice versa. So that part of it is just, I don't find it funny or ironic. I just find it frustrating, and I don't like to micro follow it or whatever that would be called, because of the stress involved. I would just rather hear the results in a week or two than listen to everybody fight about what's going to happen until it, is a lead up to it.
Well, Trump's leading candidate for the Supreme Court is Amy Barrett, and she is very strong in the Second Amendment.
Are you talking Ron Barrett's daughter?
I don't know if it's the daughter of Ron Barrett, but you mean like Ron Barrett, like the Barrett from Rifles?
Yeah, he's got a daughter who's awesome. She basically runs the company. She could totally do something like that.
Oh no! This is a judge.
Oh, then probably not, because Ron's daughter is young. Judges are always old.
She's not that old, but she's 48.
Oh well, I don't know.
But she's a judge. She's not a she was a lawyer than a judge. One of the things that I find really interesting, I know you don't like to talk about politics, but one of the things that I find really interesting is that one of the reasons why she's opposed by some of the people on the left is because she is a Catholic, which I think is kind of crazy that they oppose someone because they're a Catholic. But yeah,
that sounds like people that were against Kennedy, right? Because he was a Catholic.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But she's strong on this on 2A rights. She is definitely not pro red flag laws. And she is against like most gun laws, from what I can tell from all her rulings. I think she'll make a good judge, but we'll see what happens. No, but they are definitely attacking her, though.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, I don't know. Is there anybody that they could put up? I don't even know if there's a way to define the most neutral, but you could put the most neutral up there. And I feel like in this kind of situation, they would only pick on the negative parts or the the parts that don't go to their side or whatever.
Yeah, Trump could nominate like the most liberal, left-leaning judge in the world, and they would still object to
That's
it.
true too. Yeah, he could put like Gandhi in there, and I'd be like, he's not American.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, there was a case called Cantor versus Barr, which was going to it was a guy who was convicted of mail fraud, which is a felony. So they stripped him of his right to bear arms, and he appealed on saying my rights are violated. The court ruled that they had a right to take away his right to bear arms, even though he wasn't convicted of a serious offense. It's a mail fraud. Yeah, it's just a felony, but it's not a violent felony, She dissented on that. So she basically said once a person has served their terms of their sentence, that they should be free to own firearms. And she pointed out that preventing this guy from owning a firearm was doing nothing to prevent gun violence because he wasn't a violent offender. So her dissent, if anybody wants to read a good dissent, I would definitely read Cantor versus Barr. It was in the Seventh Circuit Court because it was a long dissent too, where she said,
"You do this for a living, sort of having to pay attention to these things and find them and then read them." But would you say it's worth finding I'm guessing you're talking about like going to the court case and then clicking on the tab that talks about them and then finding hers and reading it. But there's also books and stuff that'll like summarize it. Would you recommend for somebody that's digging into something like this to just go to the site and look at the raw stuff and just get into it and get used to it, or reading some of these like summary type layman's terms explanations, because there's some writers that'll focus on these things?
Yeah, well, her dissent in the Cantor versus Barr case is not really. I mean, it's very clear what she's saying. Basically, she says something like, stripping a non-violent felon of their rights to bear arms is ludicrous. Is basically what she's saying.
Oh, so it's not like some sort of weird jargon where you have to have somebody explain what she was really getting at. It's just
she was very clear, saying this is a violation of their rights. It's like, what is the point of stripping a nonviolent felon of their right to bear arms? They've never committed violence. Chances are they're never going to commit violence. So you're taking away their right, not for the public safety, but for your own selfish goals.
Yeah, maybe as a punishment or something, but yeah, we don't necessarily need the
once they're paid,
Yeah, I hear you. I'm hearing. I don't think they need to be doing punishments anyway. Your time was already a punishment.
Yeah. She's pretty strong in the Second Amendment. So anyone who wants to read about that should. She is definitely my choice, not GOA's choice. I gotta preface that it's not GOA's choice, but she is definitely my choice.
But not meaning the GOA has some other choice, just that the GOA doesn't have a choice, period, right? Like they don't have a interest in it.
We don't have a interest in it. There might be something coming out soon, but I don't know if it's going to be Amy Barrett or not. The GWebs does a lot of research before we go ahead and say this is the person that we want. We look at the strongest candidates. and try to determine which one we want to support. I am firmly on board with Amy Barrett. Some people might not be. I don't know if anybody at GOA is not on board with her, but I am definitely on board with Amy Barrett, just because not only will she agree with us on a lot of the 2A stuff, but more importantly, she will agree to hear the 2A stuff.
Yeah, that's an element that or a factor or whatever that needs to be on the table, because it doesn't do us any good if they're friendly but unwilling to even talk about it.
Yeah, and she's a gun owner. She feels strongly about gun rights and everything else. So I think that's someone we really need to consider.
All right, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Something made me think of this one. So all this stuff's going on, and one way or another, there's going to be a conclusion one way or the other to every single thing that people are worried about today, right? And I'm going to say 5 years from now, so it's way beyond any kind of Trump second term or Biden first term or whatever might happen. 5 years from now, where do you see everything? Where are we going? What direction? What hill are we on? Where are we going? Where have we been?
That's a hard question. That's a really hard question.
Out of nowhere and a long time off with a lot of variables.
Yeah, that's a really hard question. If you asked me 5 years ago, I would be able to give you a more definite answer, or 5 years for this. But we're in a lot of uncharted territory right now, politically speaking, and also just life. First thing we have to ask ourselves is, when are we going to return to normal? Or is this the new normal that's going to be like this, like wearing masks, social distancing going forward? We gotta, this is going to sound stupid, but is the handshake dead? You know? And it's little stuff like that I think is going to shape the bigger portions. And then you have the technology that's exploding, that's actually, it's connecting us, but it's also making us more isolated. It's, when I say isolated, we have more of ability to connect with each other, but we also get stuck in our little vacuum chambers, which kind of push us to one side or the other, where we have this inkling that the other side hates us and the other side hates, justice or the country or whatnot, where we have to realize that both sides probably want the same thing. People don't generally care about a lot of issues. What they care about is, will I be able to put food on the table for my family? Or, will my kids have a better life? And I think both sides have that, but there's just a different way of getting there on both sides. But I do see certain people that are in power that want to divide us to stay in power. With all that said, in 5 years, I hope that we are more together. Not all the way together, because that's never going to happen, but more together, more understanding. I just don't see that happening, though. I think we're going to be more divided than ever, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's no way, to know, like you said, there's so many variables. So looking 5 years back, though, would have been 2015. I guess it wasn't all that really different. If you went 10 years back, it was dramatically different, I think. So the amount of change that people are capable of dealing with between 10 and 20 makes me optimistic. So I'm not I understand that there's a potential for failure, for a glitch or for misunderstanding and violence and bad stuff, but I don't think it's inevitable at all. So I hear you with all that stuff. We're kind of talking about conversations we've had off topic, I guess, talking about social platforms and the way people use the web and the way people don't pay attention. But I think there's just as much potential for this election cycle and everything that's part of that to give people that universal, I guess is the word, almost globally universal wake up call. And I guess we're going to have to see with time whether or not, the alarm's going off. All this stuff is indications that there's issues, and it's whether or not we hit the snooze alarm or if we, knock the alarm off the table. And all it takes is us to just step off of social. All the things that are good about the internet are still there. You just step off of social, and you lose the influence of a manipulative robot engineer, or what is it, mechanical learning, machine learning, which it turns out, or is looking to be one of the culprits, one of the mechanisms that has too many unknowns, that when you fiddle with it, too many extra things happen. Once people start to be aware of that and question it, I think we might have as simple, everyone steps off the elevator and all of a sudden, it's not an issue if the elevator is stable or not because nobody's using it anymore. It's like MySpace. So I think if we have that, then we have a different future. But obviously there's no reason that's going to happen. I'm just saying it could happen just as easily as failure.
I don't know if that's going to happen. You bring up MySpace. MySpace was crushed by Facebook. If you look back at the Friendster days, Friendster had under 100,000 people. The MySpace had like a million people. And then Facebook now has 2 billion people. So it social media is growing. It might not be Facebook, but it's going to be another platform, whether it's on right now. I don't see anything that's on the horizon that's going to take down Facebook.
I agree. I don't know if you go with that, then yeah, there'd have to be something bigger or that much factor better than Facebook to overcome it, and that would be difficult to see coming. But I'm thinking more of just a shift where instead of people, if they just figured out emails and websites are enough and learn how to master them, then you don't have the influence. You might have a Google influence with search, but you just have less of the other influence. If they don't, what do they really get from Facebook? The DMs and the events. If other platforms or other systems came in, they figured out how to do things differently, but that would require a bad stink in Facebook or a fire, that would make people want to flee. Not, I don't think there's going to be something that's so much more attractive that they're going to rush over and leave Facebook in a ghost town.
Well, people under 30, most people under 30 do not use email at all. They use messaging.
Right.
When I work for Facebook,
because they don't do anything. When you're under 30, what do you don't do nothing. You go to dinner and you make plans for tomorrow, but you're not worrying about, what did I tell the sitter about the kids 2 years ago? And that's when you figure out email's pretty handy. If you're not sending attachments for work, then yeah, text works great. So I'm sure that a bunch of kids use things until they become responsible adults, and then they have to use things differently. But for frivolous stuff, yeah, you can use stuff that doesn't have an archive or doesn't have a searchable way to reclaim data.
Well, Facebook does have a searchable way to reclaim data and messages. And we in Facebook, when I worked for Facebook, we used messaging. We hardly ever used emails.
I hear you. So what do you want me to say? I'm not defending emails. I agree that we don't use things consistently over time. So why would we, if we don't use emails, and emails were literally core fundamental to the internet 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that was all there was, then why would we expect Facebook is going to be here permanently for the rest of the time? We evolve as humans, and the way that we use our tools evolves. We don't use, ratchets anymore when you got power tools and air tools.
Well, I'm not saying that Facebook is going to be the end all be all. What I'm saying is that for the foreseeable future, it's going to be some type of social media platform.
Oh, I hear you, but everybody always says that until the end of it. Now I hear you. Like I might not be using the best
Not in
analogy.
5 years.
Huh?
You asked me where I see the world in 5 years. I don't think we're going to have social media in 5 years.
Well, we didn't even have social media 10 years ago. So, I mean, we don't have to have it for 3 generations just because we have it. It could be a laughing stock. Once people figure out they're manipulated and they figure out that something's not for their benefit, how long do you think they're going to stick around? Facebook would have to change drastically for people to, once they understand what it's doing to them and what it's doing to their children. And, if you take phones away from children, how big is Facebook? So if people decide that Facebook is an evil and they take it away, it's gone tomorrow. I mean, it's just a thing. So the idea that people need to use the internet that way, I hear you. I don't know if that's going to go away in 5 years or if we're going to change our patterns in 5 years. But literally all it takes is people figuring out that they can do things individually instead of on a giant platform that provides it for you.
Well, if you look at it, when the internet entered into the American lexicon, I know it's been around since the 60s, but 94 was when UNet came up with the first, or 92, but 94 when they finally launched the first commercially available internet and people started buying it. It was still in academia and stuff like that. I remember using it in the late 80s when I was like in middle school, using links, but that's neither here nor there. But like 94, 95-ish, that's when a lot of people started getting it. We had bulletin boards, which was kind of like social media. Then in 99, I got on Friendster, and then MySpace, and then YouTube. So I think social media has been around a little bit longer than what a lot of people think.
No, that's a good point. And people are never going to stop being social. I mean, that's the thing. I guess what I'm saying is one platform like it was the AOL, it was the MySpace, it's the Facebook where like they're your portal or whatever. That isn't a requirement of the internet. In fact, It's every time we change, it's when people get a look at what's outside of that, and that's when the next best thing comes along. When people start looking out the window. But you're right. As soon as people could talk on a phone, they started chat room, basically like what they call those back in the day, where people would get together and like 10 people on a phone call. So yeah, there's always the tendency or the need for people to get together and communicate in a group, and someone will come along and cater to that for sure.
Well, here's the thing with Facebook, which I think makes Facebook dangerous. Every time there's a new and upcoming social media platform, WhatsApp, Instagram, Oculus, all these social media platforms, once they start threatening Facebook just buys them. So I think it might be to the point where we need the government to step in and say, hey, you're becoming a monopoly. You cannot buy another platform.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I hear exactly what you're saying, and that is frustrating, but I'm too capitalist for that. So I'd rather see education and awareness, and people just say, I don't want to deal with that company.
Yeah, I'm capitalist too, but when you have a company with that much power and they don't have to compete, all they do is buy whoever, it looks like they're going to compete.
It's not even like, and you're making it sound like if there's a competitor, but yeah, you're talking the scale where they can literally just start buying anybody who goes, hey, I have an idea, click, I'm going to buy it, because they got that kind of funding and that kind of business plan where if it's a good idea, they'll incorporate it. And if it's not, it goes in a drawer, like a lot of other companies have had that plan, but they have the ability to do it. They don't have to even think twice. They got all the money.
Yeah, but they bought platforms and just shut them down.
Right, that's what I mean. I mean, car companies used to do that. Somebody come up with a better axle and they'd go, oh crap, that might actually be a better axle. We better buy it and not use it so we don't have to retool all our factories when, Chrysler uses it. So, I mean, that isn't a new business tactic. But when you got a company that's globally bigger than most states, like most countries, it doesn't even have to think twice. It can just literally buy every new idea if it's a good idea or not, and stifle innovation. So I hear you. I mean, you can't have, well, at least it's tough to have just plain capitalism. And I'm not necessarily vouching for that. I was just trying to put a counterpoint in there. I'm not jumping straight to government intervention. But no, I hear you. It's Facebook is no longer just like a thing in California. It's a global level.
It's in 100 different countries.
And we gotta deal with it, or it's going to need to be dealt with in a different way than just some little company in California that sells to 100 countries.
Yeah, Clover brought up a good point, kind of like the Ma Bells back in the 80s when they had to start them up.
I don't know. I'm the divestiture and everything when they chopped up Bell. I don't know. I don't think I was alive. I might have been a baby or something, but so I wasn't paying attention at the time. Plus, even if I was around, I wasn't paying attention, stuff like that. But I don't think I'm a fan of divestiture when they chopped up the Bells. I kind of feel like if Bell put in all that copper and all that wire, then that's theirs. Like, I don't think you get to start telling them how much they get to charge for stuff. I mean, they literally invented stuff that everyone benefits from. Just how to move electrons through copper and stuff. A lot of that innovation was done there. So it's real easy in 2020 hindsight, but at the same time, what are you going to do? It did happen, and we live in the consequences of that world. So whenever it happens, that means there's precedent. So whether I like it or not, you could use that same precedent, I guess, at Facebook and say you got to chop it off and leave Instagram by itself and leave all these different components as their own, I suppose.
Yeah, well, Bell basically started doing the same thing as Facebook. Is whenever there was a competitor or someone that they felt threatened by, they just bought them and shut them down.
Yeah, or incorporated them and said it's theirs. It's just this is ours now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And now and what's scary with the Bells is a utility, so they couldn't, kick people off for, saying something that they don't agree with, which Facebook does. They can ban you from the public square.
And well, okay, but Bell was back in like the olden days when everything was copper and like hardwired. So there's nothing telling what they would have done. Like if they could have got all the way up to where we're at now and still been Bell, maybe they would be listening to phone calls. Who knows? They work weird.
No, but they couldn't.
No, but if we switched roles, they might. I would say I don't think Facebook is unique. I think that other companies could easily be just as bad.
But what I'm saying is the Bells, they couldn't decide whether they would give you phone service or not. They still can't do that. They're called a utility, and utilities cannot discriminate. They have to be like an open platform.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like as far as like their role, they weren't allowed to do that, as opposed to whether they could or not. Like I was thinking if they could or not. You're thinking like if they're allowed to or not. I got you.
Exactly. So I mean, maybe that's what Facebook needs to go to if they want to stay together.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know if I guess you could tell us more insight from that. Does it still work? I mean, the way that they've got their business model is not the only way to make money. If they were impartial, let's say, to the content and simply delivered, they'd still make a pile of money, right? It's not like they lose half their income by not being able to focus things as much as they focus today.
No, exactly. What they do is they make a boatload of money. You got to remember, a lot of the stuff that they do, content moderation rise, is not based on profits. It's based on ideology.
So removing or restricting that element from their system, then that wouldn't really affect their bottom line. They're still going to make all the money.
No, it's not going to affect their bottom line at all.
If anything, if they were to, like Google or whoever owns YouTube now, if they were to leave guns alone and let gun shops put ads in front of my videos, number one, I would care about making a video again because I'd be getting paid. And then those gun shops would have a place to put an ad in front of that's useful. I bet you YouTube would make a pile more money if they left us alone.
Yeah, but
if they actually just made money off of us, they could make a pile of money.
Yeah, but it's ideological.
Right.
Weston makes up a good point. These companies gets by with it because they aren't publishers. Yeah, here's the thing with the whole publisher thing. I think I talked about this on your show of how, like, whenever they get a DMCA claim, they said, "Hey, we're not responsible. We're not publishers." But then when they censor someone, they're like, "Hey, we can do that. We're publishers." So they got to be forced to. You're either a publisher and your immunity from DCMAs are gone, or you are not a publisher and you're just a platform, and therefore you have to abide by free speech. And when I say free speech, people always jump on me and go, "Oh, Google, free speech only has to do with the Constitution, with the government," and that's not true. The First Amendment recognizes, it puts restrictions of free speech on the government, but free speech does not automatically equal First Amendment. First Amendment deals with the government. Free speech deals with speech. And that's something that drives me crazy.
Sorry, I'm reading comments and not listening as much as reading. But Clover's saying a local car dealer ad. He's seen a local car dealer ad. What would be the difference if it was a local gun shop ad for his video? And like you say, it's nothing. It's just their attitude as a quote unquote non-editorial platform, right?
Yeah, well, they're like, it drives me crazy. It's like they claim to be publishers in one sense, then they claim not to be publishers. It's whether it gives them an advantage or not.
Now, as far as that same 5-year thing, do you think this is something that'll come to a head or be solved or be addressed even in 5 years? Or are we looking at this being something that's just never ending or longer?
I think it's gonna have to come up to a head. It's going to have to. I think they're going to be reclassified as utilities, or they're going to be told that, hey, you're either a platform like you said you are, or you're a publisher. You got to be either one.
Yeah, after a year like this, I mean, the election cycle for sure, but then of course all the other stuff, you would think that if anything's going to make people wake up to it, it's this kind of situation or the amplitude or whatever the level of the extreme this year. And then we're in the middle of it, so it's going to take a second for that to all calm down. But when it calms down, I don't know, who do you think would lead the initiative? Like a competitor or just some senator trying to get a name for themselves or something else?
If Trump wins the re-election, I can see Trump doing it. And senators on, and they have support on both sides of the aisle, which I think kind of scares Facebook that the Democrats and Republicans.
So it's universally bad that everybody understands and agrees on something.
Yeah, here's the thing if you look at the Biden-Harris campaign, right? Harris submitted an amicus brief during the Heller case saying that the individual does not have a right to bear arms. The right to bear arms is not an individual right. I posted on Facebook before my Facebook account got deleted, my old Facebook account got deleted, that her amicus brief, and it was marked false by Facebook and it said Kamala Harris supports the individual's right to bear arms. And do you know what their evidence that she supports the right to bear arms is?
What?
She hasn't said that she doesn't support the right to bear arms since she filed a amicus brief in the Heller case stating that the individual, because they said her opinions could change over time, so therefore this is false.
Nice.
Is that insane?
No, it's definitely political doublespeak. It's like 1984. It's like Orwellian, using words but backwards and against people, like using them as doublespeak.
Yeah, it's just like, oh well, she hasn't said it in the last couple of years, so therefore she must be in support of it now. Unless you want her to be against it, then she's against it.
Yeah, if you want her to be against it, then feel free to assume that. But if you're assuming the other, how dare you?
Yeah, it's just crazy. All right, we've been on for a little bit of little over an hour. I want to thank you for coming on, and I want to do the Joe Biden Pledge of Allegiance. I don't know if you saw this, so I'm going to quote it exactly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, one nation, indivisible, under God, for real.
Snap. That's what he said, for real?
Yes.
Oh, that's abbreviated. That's the new one.
Under God, for real. I'm just like, what?
Who was he pandering to? Like, did he think that was going to get him some points someplace? Was this like...
I know. I just think he forgot where he was. I'll show you really quick before we go. Yeah, I think he just forgot where he was.
Some of the things, you see it on like an Instagram clip or in somebody's show, they'll show something, and it's hard to say, because if you just stop talking mid-sentence and stand there, it almost looks edited. But
America, I pledge allegiance.
Okay, hold on. Let me show you this. But yeah, this is the last thing we'll do, and then I'll let you get out of here. All right, let me blow this up here.
America, I pledge allegiance to the United States of America. One nation, indivisible, under God, for real.
There you go.
It's speechless. That's great.
For real. You're like, what the hell? What the hell? For real. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm confused sometimes by Biden. Night. We'll be back tomorrow. Support me on Patreon, patreon.com/John Crump, patreon.com/John Crump. All proceeds go to my niece. Thank you for watching. You can buy my book at crumpy.com/giants. The patches did ship today, so they should be here in about a week. You join Gun Owners of America for 25% off at gunowners.org/black-swan-media. Join the conversation at youtube.com/johncrump2. You can get 10% off by using code Crumpy, not Liberty, but Crumpy, at blackswantactical.com. You can go to Hawaiian House and use black. There it is. Right one. Also, check out my militia gear at crumpy.com/militia. Remember the giveaway. Thank you to Black Swan Tactical. The audio only podcast will be out tomorrow. I'm going to give Mr. GWebs the final word, and then we're going to get out of here.
Right on. Thanks again for the opportunity to chat again. It's always fun to be part of your series here. What is this, number 127?
127, yeah.
That's pretty awesome. So 120. I'm honored to be in a list of 127 conversations like this that you've been doing with Second Amendment advocates and people in the gun industry. Gives us all something to listen to that is real, for real.
Yeah, there's been actually 140-ish, but there's been like some special episodes that aren't numbered in there as well.
Right on. Yeah, appreciate the effort and being included in it. It's cool.
All right, see you guys.